Okay, this works.
Ah,
This is cool. Yeah, this is my
brother.
first time doing one of these, so I wasn't. All right, hello.
You can hear me? See me? Everything's good?
Yep, yep, yep.
Likewise to you, man. You look great.
Thank
I mean, life is treating you well. You got a lot of success and a lot of great things going on. Thank you very much for taking the time today, my man.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. This will be fun.
Okay, Pete, man, oh man, I tell you, from trying to, there's different times where I have a little bit of an easier time with writing interviews and I can
Mm.
focus on something. You've got a lot of stuff going on and you got a lot of great stuff going on. So it's like, we had fun here. I didn't want to take up 4 or 5 hours of your day today. I think we got it consolidated to a good conversation.
Sounds good. Yeah, if anything, I have a good backlog of weird stuff to talk about,
Uh-huh.
and I have a ton of new stuff percolating now too, which is very exciting. So, absolutely.
Man, I cannot wait, dude. It was very fun, obviously, with going into, Destroy All Neighbors and seeing, as far as the writing aspect and the ideas that flourish from that. But going back and looking into things like When We Dance and Malacostraca that just is coming out, Umbilical Jim. Dear Lord, dude, you've got some wild and original
Thank
ideas
you.
that are just awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's it's been bonkers up inside my brain, but I think I've put it to good use off and on over the years.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. No, I see it. I mean, and prior to all of that, and maybe even digging back to childhood and coming up, what are some things that that interested you, and some activities that were fun with with friends when you were growing up?
Oh man, so I was a weird monster obsessed kid from day one, and luckily I had a lot of friends when I was younger who were also into movies or animation, writing and drawing. We weren't really Amblin entertainment bicycle riders. Do you know what I mean? We
Mm-hmm.
were in the backyard pretending to make movies and then making movies on my parents' VHS camera, doing lots of drawings and comics, and yeah, I had this early inclination towards horror, and some of my friends less so, but they kind of put up with it through me, and we all got into filmmaking kind of through that, my parents included. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay. So parents too, they were big into watching movies, and
well, they
so is
were
there any
very
sort of
so. Yeah,
restrictions?
yeah, to a ridiculous degree where I look back and I'm like, well, I don't know about this, but my parents, they're theater people. They met in the theater. My mom was a classically trained ballerina turned writer director on the stage, and my dad helped build and design the sets. So
Oh,
they met through theater, and then I came out, as it were, into the world through and. They used to joke like, "Where do we go wrong? You want to be behind the camera?" Like, so, but they weren't monster people. They were theatrical, creative. So, but they let me watch whatever I wanted. I learned my Roman numerals from the Howling sequel VHS covers. Like, yeah, yeah.
beautiful.
Mhm.
When we get into sequels like that, were there any of those? Did you enjoy, some of the sequels and
Well, I
and
can
have
say
fun?
without a doubt that The Howling II, Your Sister's a Werewolf, is the single most important film of my life. And I'll tell
Okay,
you
wow.
why. It was the first film I saw as a kid that was filmed in Prague, and I became
Mm,
amazed as a child by this fact that there was a city that looked like some gothic medieval fairy tale,
hmm
with giant clocks with skeletons dangling out of them and all this crazy architecture, which led me to getting into the work of Jan Svankmajer, the famous surrealist Czech animator who became my biggest filmic influence in middle school into high school, which then led to me going to Emerson College for film school in Boston because they had a study in Prague summer course program for film and animation, which I got into back in like 2007, 2008. And it was there that I became closer friends with some of the people in my film program who ended up being some of my friends for life. And that all stemmed from the initial fascination with Prague from the, the Howling II. So,
Dude, that's how crazy. And one of our kind of, offsite conversations, I had mentioned Jan Svankmajer, and
Yep.
especially with Malacostraca,
Hmm.
and I'm just like, dude, this in the best way is screaming, that just sort of wild idea and the execution of it. And oh man, I love, little Odic and
Little Otik
Alice
is
and
great. Alice, his version of Faust is my favorite. When we were in
oh yeah.
Prague, we got to see an outdoor screening of Faust on an island in the middle of the main river that cuts through the city, and it was just like, yeah, no, I have a lot of
Wow.
his. I have the Alice poster framed right there above my
Oh
TV.
my God, that is
Uh,
amazing.
and then
Damn.
speaking of Czech stuff, next to it here, this I got this when I was in Prague. This is an original Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me
Oh,
lobby
damn.
card from its release in Prague, which I got David Lynch to sign when I met him in LA about a
Wow.
decade ago. So Czech film,
Damn. That is
David
amazing.
Lynch, Spankmeyer, that's sort of the holy trinity in a way.
Did you ever get into collecting as far as DVDs or VHS or anything like that? Or was it more memorabilia like posters and such?
I have posters, and I mean, I got posters.
I
This is an
see. I
original.
see.
This is Weekend at Bernie's. This is the Polish poster. The director just died, but I love that in
Oh,
Poland the artists
wow.
were just like did whatever they wanted. It looks like Ingmar Bergman. I don't have a
That's
lot of
amazing.
VHSs right now, but I do have my little mini collection of
Beautiful.
Blu-rays and 4Ks and stuff, including the little,
Beautiful. Uh
there's
huh.
movie.
Like,
And there's a
see,
Robert
see.
Mitchum fan. I collect stuff. This is my Wonder Cabinet, which holds many of the
Oh
puppets and
man.
weird things I've built over the years. There's my full scale Audrey 2 from a Halloween costume. You know, you might have
Man.
seen if you look through my stuff. This is the Grumbo Goblin puppet. Uh,
Yeah, okay.
a little worse for wear over the years, but still in pretty good condition. It's even still got the dangling
That's right.
saliva from it.
Yeah, okay.
Let's
Is
see.
that silicone?
It's liquid latex. And
Okay,
last but
okay.
not least, I keep this here in this room, but I have my Eraserhead baby that I built.
Oh,
So,
man. That is so
yeah,
awesome.
they just they just showed Eraserhead and a lot of other David Lynch films at the Loft Theater here in Tucson, where I live now, and I brought this as just as a way to bring it out into the world, and it went over decently well. So,
Wow, I
uh,
imagine so. Now
but yeah,
you're initially from Jersey?
I'm from New Jersey. Yeah, I grew up in a town called Tenafly, which is in North Jersey, about 30 minutes from New York City. Which was, my parents being theater people, it was good to be close to everything.
Mm,
But yeah, but no, I moved to Los Angeles in 2009, and I was there till just a couple months ago, and pretty much I fled the fires and just moved here to Tucson,
mm,
and it's been much better, and I like it here a lot more. We can go into that over time, perhaps, one thing at a time. But yeah, I'm from New Jersey originally. My parents still live in Fort Lee, which, if you're an ancient film obsessive like me, you'll know that's where the film industry started in the
mm.
silent era before they realized the weather's not good. Let's move to California. So I get a kick out of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Wow, antenna fly. We're talking maybe some street trash. I need to look into that.
That
The
is
tenna
that
fly
is
viper.
yep, that's correct. The my hometown is where the name of the street trash drink it's based off. Yeah.
No shit. Is that a movie based out of New Jersey? I guess I'm not even
I
like
mean, it was an East
correlating.
Coast New York City filmmaker. I don't know if he's from Tenafly initially, but he clearly knew of it because it's Tenafly is like right across the George Washington Bridge from New York City, so people know of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no shit. Okay. Wow. I just heard the name and I'm like, huh, there's the correlation there. I love that. What I mean, as far as, in those earlier days, maybe some of the movies that you ended up making with friends, is there anything as far as a tangible item that you wish that you had kept that, you had in your childhood and you're like, damn it, why did I get rid of that or lose it?
Gee, that's a great question. There's certainly, well, I know one item I wish I'd kept more, but my dog ate the face of it off. I don't know if you remember back in the day, there used to be that magazine called Toy Fair,
Sure.
and okay, and they always had these contests like create your own custom toy, and if you win, you'll get featured in the magazine, and blah 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 blah
Hmm.
blah. And so one year I decided I wanted to make my own version of an alien toy because I loved how, the alien toys, the whole thing was whatever animal it was birthed out of, it looked like.
Hmm.
So it's like, what if an alien got into Spawn, the Todd McFarlane
Oh,
character?
oh
So
man.
I used one of my alien toys, and with help from my dad, because he was a builder, a tinkerer, we kind of transformed it into looking like Spawn, and we built like the red cape of it and kind of painted on the mask of it and took photos. And this was late '90s, so we had to like mail the photos physically to the magazine, so they're gone. I think we got like second or third place, but after we
Oh,
did the little photo shoot, the dog somehow found the toy, got in my room, and it ate it apart. So that was a bummer.
bastard.
Yeah,
Boy, oh boy, leave it to the dog.
yeah.
Now, in the years of watching movies, and we all have our fun and have our things that, is something that can practically scare us, but does anything come to mind as far as an irrational fear, something that happens and you're like, this wouldn't really ever happen in real life, but now I feel like I need to look around my shoulder just to make sure.
Well, so when I was younger, I watched everything, and nothing scared me because I was interested in the behind the scenes and the making of it. But there were two films that even my parents were like, "Let's wait a little while to see," and that was The Exorcist and The Shining.
Mm,
And the first time we saw The Exorcist, they decided to make a big thing of it. They got it on VHS. We decided we're going to watch it on a Sunday to be as anti-religious and anarchy as possible. And I'm not Catholic or anything like that. I was raised Episcopalian, which, if anything, just is boring and just nicely progressive, though. But The Exorcist scared me because I think there was something at the time about a kid getting wrapped up in this, and the look of Linda Blair was just so off-putting.
mm.
So I only recently returned to it, and now it doesn't scare me, but I admire the just filmic intensity of it and the acting. And I finally read the book because I never read the book, and the book was, I thought it would be like a fun like page turner, but it was very poetic and well written to the point
Mm.
that I it made me admire the film adaptation even more
Oh wow,
in terms of how they did it and what they cut and what they kept.
man.
Yeah, in terms
It's
of,
always. Oh, go
no,
ahead.
I'm just trying to think in terms of other things that scare me. It's more a disturbing. Like, I think one of the scariest or most eerie films I've seen is this experimental art film called Decasia by Bill Morrison, and it's all made from crumbling, decaying nitrate footage all over 100 years ago that he reprocessed and refilmed and slowed down. So you're watching a film about death on decayed, crumbling, dead film where everyone you're seeing in the footage is long dead, and it's all set to
Oh.
this experimental orchestral piece, which came first, of an entirely detuned orchestra. So it's all atonal music,
Whoa.
death footage. It's a feature. It's terrifying. I've seen it on the big screen 2 or 3 times, and it's remarkable.
Decasia. I gotta write this
Mm-hmm.
down really
Yeah,
quick.
it's fucking nuts.
When about did this come out?
I want to say maybe late '90s, early 2000s. I first saw it in a film class, an experimental film class at Mass Art. I went to Emerson, but I took the experimental film class at Mass Art, and the teacher was an infamous experimental filmmaker. He recently passed away. His name was Luther Price. This guy, he was a foreign exchange student in Nicaragua in the wrong time at the wrong place during the Sandinista Revolution. And he
Oh
got
man.
shot by an AK-47, and 6 feet of his intestines came out, and he
Oh
woke up
man.
in a back alley hospital getting re-put together and nearly died. And when he survived, he felt like he had become a new person, and that's when he started going by Luther Price. It was like his reborn name. And what he did was he used a lot of super 8 millimeter footage, home footage, old stuff, and recontextualized it and made it graphic and disturbing. Like back in the day, sometimes people who programmed him at film festivals were fired because of the content of his. He was an incredible, deep
Oh
cut underground Massachusetts artist. And yeah, he first introduced me to Decasia, and it was one of the most insane screenings of my life.
wow. Man, oh man. It's always interesting as far as filmmakers or people in special effects, Tom Savini included, who have experienced war and have experienced,
Yeah,
that firsthand. And it's like, holy shit, man, the depiction that you get from, even diving into the horror realm, you know, is
Hmm.
like sometimes it's not supposed to be something scary or brutal, and it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
that is a different way to see things for sure.
I
Oh
mean, I
shit.
can relate to that because I've had my fair share of medical health scares off and on throughout my adult life,
Hmm.
and they've influenced my writing, my filmmaking, and like I had one last year that genuinely nearly killed me. My stomach went to shit. Actually, it was about a year ago this week. I'm gonna make a post about it. But
Wow.
yeah, when you have near-death experiences, or you've seen death, or just or violence, if you can get through it and transmute it through your work, your art, it helps a little bit. But yeah, like sometimes people are like, Charlie, why are you so into horror? I'm like, because I have a window. Like, have you seen outside? Like, like have you seen reality? No.
It's, you know, it's certainly, it's a way of coping. You know, it's kind of that mechanism of, and especially
Yeah.
for somebody who's experienced, you know, that trauma or has
Yeah.
experienced, you know, like such extremity. It's a, I mean, I feel like a healthy way of, you know, of depicting and, you know, like kind of expunging that from your soul and
I,
body.
I think so too. No, it's certainly healthy to work through it. It's more healthy than not.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for people whose brains aren't wired towards storytelling or creativity because what do you do with stuff inside you? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Sure. Now you mentioned the behind the scenes aspect, and you know, do you remember as far as certain movies, maybe special features? Like I know Star Wars was kind of an earlier one that either before or after the VHS tapes, it would show kind of behind the
Right.
scenes, you know, clips and such.
Yeah. I mean, I
You
I
remember
was a big
discovering that?
Star I was a big Star Wars kid too, just because who wasn't? The special editions came out when I was a kid, and so I was able to see them on the big screen. And
Mm.
I liked all the puppets and the creatures, the Jabba the Hutts and the salacious crumbs of it all. But really, it was reading Fangoria from an early age. Speaking of
Oh,
which,
sure.
a new friend of mine just gifted me with a first
Oh,
issue,
damn!
which I'm gonna read
Wow!
once and then frame, which is very exciting.
Wow!
But yeah, there was one town over from me. There was an old-fashioned magic shop that
Mm.
sold toys and trinkets and Halloween
Hmm.
stuff. It's called Ken's Magic Shop, and there was this one guy who worked there who's like the dictionary definition teenage angsty goth. And
Hmm.
me being a little horror kid, I was so oh, who's this guy? And he got a kick out of me being a little kid into this. So he introduced me to Fangoria, and so I started reading about the behind the scenes, and that's how I got to know Tom Savini and all of them at an early age. And yeah, I had a lot of
Interesting.
films on VHS too, but it was really Fangoria, I think, that kicked it into high gear.
Sure. Oh man, dude. And what a way. I mean, those magazines, Fangoria and some of the other was another one that I
Words.
was real big into, you know, from
Alien ones.
Canada.
Yeah.
And I've always loved, you know, the things that they do, and especially, you know, when you get into, you know, the behind the scenes things and showing, you know, some of the scenes that you've been long familiar with, and oh man, that's how they did
Yeah.
that, you know, and kind of seeing some of the aspects of the gore and practical
Mhm.
effects. Man, I love that. You know, as far as you had mentioned in an interview the idea of Malacostraca coming through and kind of being fleshed out initially in college,
Yeah.
you know, over a decade ago. And can you bring us back to, you know, that class and tell us,
Sure.
you know, how as
Yeah,
far
I
as
was in a
that may have.
creative. I think I was. So I was a junior at Emerson back in Boston, and had a creative writing class by this author. His name's John Papernick, which is a fantastic last name for a writer. Um, and he kind of called me out on my bullshit, and by that I mean I was still very much influenced by some of the sci-fi horror comedy writers I like. So I was writing really kind of wink wink, haha, clever kind of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy kind of vibing ripoffs and stuff. And it was partially because I liked that, and also partially I was shy and awkward and didn't really want to put anything too deep or personally psychological into a story. And this author, writer, teacher, he's like, fuck that shit. He's like, try to like you want to work in hard, you want to do these things, like find something that actually scares you, work with something. And I was like, okay. And I took this to heart. And the first thing that happened was that initial opening scene image where the concept of a woman sleeping by a creek with a crawdad crawling towards her came into my mind. and I thought that was creepy and disturbing. But then I took it back a step, and I thought, what's even creepier than that being the visual is that me as a dude came up with this idea, which means, well, what if there is a man watching her, and instead of waking her up, he stays silent to see what will happen? And I thought that was very disturbing and uncomfortable, and it all came from there. So it initially grew into something like a 5 or 6 page short story, very similar to what the short film ended up, but truncated. And I felt like it was the first thing I wrote that delve deeper into psychology, or gender dynamics, or just all the stuff that really informs our world for better or worse. But that was it. I never thought it would become a short film or anything. And then many years later, I'd been living in LA for over half a decade, and I'd met some people I wanted to work with, and I had done one short film before, which kind of came out to mixed effect due to all sorts of crazy issues there, but I enjoyed who I worked with on it. So I started thinking, oh my God, what about that short story? What if I think I know enough people to do it for real and maybe get some great special effects? I rewrote the script, but then due to financial issues, and also I had another stomach health scare then, which pushed it back about half a year, it allowed for me to rewrite the script. And let me put it this way, when it takes several years to make a short film in LA, when you see everyone else lapping you and making features and everything, you kind of feel like a shrimp, pun intended. You feel like an idiot. And so the initial drafts, the husband wasn't a would-be kind of failed writer, but by the end of that process, that's what I felt like. So the psychology got deeper, and then luckily it all did come together, and we shot it, and I'm happy with the end result. But yeah, that short film took about 5 years of development to get made, which is ridiculous. But I think we got a better short because of it. But yeah, it was a lot.
Do you feel, I mean, as far as, going through those experiences with that writing class and, some of the things that may have excelled, you kind of mentioned and touched on that, but were there certain aspects that kind of diminished your skill over time where you're like, I don't think I don't think I'm gonna use that.
I mean, things within the story ebbed and flowed a little bit. The only thing that really diminished was, my sense of self-worth or belief in it. If, when you're trying to make a short film for so long and everything is going wrong, it feels like an albatross around your neck.
Mm.
Like, I'd wake up panicked about that freaking short film for months, and then we did the 2 month long online Indiegogo campaign, and the two producers I had at the time were negligent in their duties, and I ended up having to fire them halfway through the first day of shooting, and it was a whole,
Oh.
everything went wrong. But the stress and anxiety of doing 2 months of fundraising, and then we got a very decent amount for just an indie project, but it wasn't enough to initially pull the trigger to get shooting, and I felt like such a failure, and it's just, yeah, just, it was endless for a while.
Mm. The trials and
Yeah.
tribulations. I mean, that's kind of one of those things over time that work out, and you kind of you learn in these early aspects. And I guess touching on
Yeah.
that too, and I see you have certain credits earlier 2000s, 2006, 2007. Where do you first find yourself on a set? From this interest in film to finding yourself like, man, I'm here.
The very first feature I ever worked on, comically enough, shot 2 houses down from my childhood home in Tenafly, New Jersey.
Oh shit.
Again, it was an independent film. I think the director, oh, she's Indian. I think the name's like Myra Nair. The film is called Cosmopolitan, I believe. It was like a TV movie, and it was about an older Indian man who fell in love with an older white woman, and the kind of cultural clash. And the cool thing is, the older woman was played by the famous actress Carol Kane. Uh,
Oh really?
uh-huh.
Okay.
I wasn't as aware of her work as just like a horror nerd 17-year-old from New Jersey, but my parents sure were, so they're very excited about this. So I was like on the art team. I was just like a gopher. I ran around the set a bit. My parents opened up our home to be kind of like a green room holding pen for actors, and it
Oh.
was a fun experience, but I remember a lot of the older crew members, all they did was try to warn me off getting into filmmaking. It was very classical, like, oh, this sucks. You'll eat your life up. You'll never make any money. You don't want this, kid. And I mean, they weren't wrong, but also like, fuck that. I'm gonna, my brain is wired this way. I want to make the movies. But yeah, I would love to work with Carol Kane again as like an actual person making movies because she's one of my favorites. But yeah, that was the first film I was on.
Wow. Okay. And I mean, as far as some of your personal work, I wanted to dig into first off, Umbilical Jim. And when I mention this title, what's the first thing that comes to mind with this wacky concept?
Well, so the concept was created by the actress in the film who plays the girl next door, and she also was a cinematographer. She was really talented, or still is. She's not dead. She's just very much in another part of the country. But
Okay.
Sarah Budd, yeah. So that was around the same time I first wrote the short version of what became Malacostraca, and it was about pushing psychological weirdness. But the first thing that comes to mind is how the entirety of the first shoot was stolen, and we had to refilm it at our own expense the start of the next semester. So that was the first
Oh,
project I
wow.
shot on Super 16 color film in college, and we sent it to a processing plant in New York City that had very good rates.
Okay.
But that factory in New York City forgot to put the signature required on the return form for the box that contained the negative, the mini DV transfer, all of it. And at the time, I lived in an apartment off of Harvard Square, literally Harvard. So it had a
Mhm.
lot of foot traffic, a lot of pedestrians, a lot of tourists. And the box with all the footage was delivered in late November, and some rando stole it, thinking maybe it was like an expensive holiday gift, and they probably just threw it out. But we lost an entire semester's. We lost the whole film. It was brutal, and that was terrible. And we, again, at our own dime, we had to reshoot the entire film the first weekend of the next semester before other people needed those cameras. So we ended up with a better film because we were doing it again and knew better how to do it, but that was a complete nightmare. But the end
Oh,
result is
man.
good. So yeah.
Sure.
Right.
And I guess blessing in disguise,
Mhm.
as far as the frustration there, but I guess having that technical ability of going like, well, we've already done this.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some things that we can kind of adjust to make it a
Yes.
little bit better. And
Be-
what the hell was that umbilical
It
cord made out of?
it was, oh god, Emily, I think, was the effects artist. I haven't talked to her in forever, but so it was a thin, like nylon rope, right? Like a thin, yeah, little thicker than a string, not like a rope, but in between. And then she glued tiny red and blue strings onto it to look like veins, and then painted it with layers of liquid latex, translucent, so the veins could sort of be seen through it. Yeah.
This concept, like this idea, where did that birth from?
Man, you'd have to ask Sarah. She had the initial visual idea. It was almost like I think we were all just having lunch in the cafeteria. It was almost a joke, like, wouldn't it be weird if there was like a young boy still attached to his mom to the umbilical cord? And I was just like, oh, that should be our movie. We got to do that. So she graciously let me roll with it and write it and expand it. And funnily enough, that visual ended up getting stolen about a decade later by a Skittles Mother's Day commercial, and I tried to sue them but couldn't because I couldn't get. I talked to a couple lawyers, and they were all like, just looking at the visuals, they're like, it's clear they stole your shot and color design, but without the smoking gun paperwork or email from the director saying, I've seen this, I want to replicate this, I would have just lost money.
Oh,
But that was a
oh
very weird
man.
thing. At the time, I was hoping that the lawsuit I'd win would pay for my short films at the time. But anyway, I'll have to find that commercial and send it to you. There was a little bit of controversy online, and they ended up taking the commercial down. The Skittles Corporation claimed it wasn't because of stealing from me, but because they got too many complaints that it was too gross for Mother's Day. But what was cool about that is the actor who played the mother in that was Mac's mother from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the
Oh, okay.
smoking, grumbling woman.
Yeah.
So that was cool. But yeah, it was really. I was like, of all the things to get stolen by a international commercial corporation, fucking Umbilical Jim. I couldn't believe it.
I can't. I feel like it's reminiscent. I mean, when you mention that, but I'm trying to picture it too, and it's pretty insane for it being like a pitch for Mother's Day.
Bizarre. My life is very odd. It's like every couple of months something happens where I'm like, if I read this in a script, I'd say revise it because this doesn't happen. Like this is too on the nose. Yeah.
Now, I mean, with this concept, with this idea, with Umbilical Jim, it kind of made me start thinking about certain scenes and things that were disturbing, and sometimes not in the sense of being the craziest kill, but what are a couple of things that scenes in movies you've seen over the years that are ingrained in your brain? Something maybe disgusting, impressive effects. What comes to mind?
Oh man. I mean, there's so much. It's hard to pinpoint, but I think well, I really like a lot of the really. I get creeped out more by early films, silent films, and I think again it goes to they're dead, but there they are alive. But
Mm,
there's a version of the Hands at Orlac
mm,
with Conrad Veidt, who played Cesare from Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. And it's a classic. It's based on that famous old story where like the piano player's hands are damaged in like a train accident, and he gets new hands. Of course, they're from a killer, and the killer instinct kind of goes into him. And there's something like where he's laying in bed, and a giant translucent hand comes down and points at him. And again, it's so blatant and so much just like an old painting like that. Oh, even creepier from silent film. This really I love silent films. What can I say?
sure.
The silent version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and there's a dream sequence where Jekyll is in bed and Mr. Hyde comes to him in the form of a giant human spider that
Hmm.
crawls across the floor and up onto the bed. And it's so disturbing, and it was not at all what I was expecting from a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde film that freaked me out, and I've used that image in one of the scripts I'm developing right now. I've kind of referenced that.
Oh, wow. No shit.
Mhm.
The personal invasion, it sounds like, even
Yeah,
with
for sure. It comes down to yeah. That's a great way to put it. Just having one's space invaded, be it psychologically or physically, medically.
sure.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah, okay. Next up, let's talk a little bit about Pepto Abysmal. In,
Yeah,
in 2014, we have this stop motion short, and
that needs a lot of
what
context. Yeah, so
okay, let's hit on it.
that was done for a long time in LA. I worked at Atlantic West Effects, which was Gabe Bartelos's special effects shop.
Oh,
It's
okay.
still there. That's how I first met Gabe. That's how our working relationship and friendship came.
Hmm.
I, like many of us horror obsessives, I grew up watching his monsters. He made Leprechaun. He did Basket Case 2 and 3, Brain Damage. He did all of Matthew Barney's Cremaster Cycle monsters, which
Hmm.
was really cool for me as the artsy fartsy weirdo I was. And when I was there, he got commissioned by this infamous Norwegian artist named Bjarne Melgaard. He's one of Norway's biggest artists. He's been working since the 80s. He is a big classical S&M gay bear man.
Hmm.
That's his whole life, and he leans into that intense, gnarly, cruising aesthetic. He gets such a kick out of that. And what's great in Norway, the government funds the arts. And this guy loves taking the government's money to make the most graphic, perverse, weirdo art possible. Who wouldn't? So the first project I collaborated with him on is actually so graphic I don't have it public on my Vimeo.
Oh,
The
wow.
first one was called Antwerp, and it's similar to Pepto Abysmal, but with more realistic puppets, if you can imagine. And
Okay.
so that first one Gabe designed the puppets, and we built the set together, and then I animated it and edited it, and it was sent to play on loop in one of his art shows in New York City. And that was such a success in Bjorn's mind that he then commissioned us to do the sequel which is Pepto Abysmal, which, for those who don't know,
Hmm.
this is a short animated film in which an anthropomorphic Pepto Abysmal bottle lives in this nightmare dungeon apartment, is visited by the Pink Panther, who rapes him, and they vomit out bismuth crystals out of it. It's insane. It's graphic and bizarre and ridiculous. I never thought I had to animate the Pink Panther getting a hard on, but I have. It was very weird. And then this whole animation then played on loop inside a giant 6 foot tall Pepto Abysmal bottle fallen over in the middle of the gallery space. So if you were in this art gallery to watch the animation, you had to get down on all fours and lean into the bottle's head and watch it in that position.
Oh
So
my God.
very
Wow, dude.
ridiculous. And so this played in New York City, and I think it went across the world. And then eventually I made it just public on my Vimeo because I thought, well, this is graphic, but it's cartoony characters, and I the evil demon in me is like I kind of like the idea of people stumbling across this unaware and having no idea what they're about to watch.
For sure. Well, and I mean, watching like your other stuff as well, that was kind of the aspect where I was like, well, this is way more out there.
Yeah, I've done some crazy stuff, that for sure.
But the context that makes a lot more sense. I love stories too. I mean, when people talk about art galleries or shows or exhibitions, and really just like pushing those things all the way out there,
Mhm.
and especially like anytime I get to have on artists and talking about such and the
Yeah.
builds and what goes into all of those things. Do you know anything about as far as I mean how they built the Pepto
I
Bismol
mean, I was
bottle and how they all
there. I
pulled that
saw
off?
them do it. It was
Okay.
similar to like building a mold for a large scale monster suit. That's what the real secret is. A lot of these practical special effects companies, they're kept afloat by the high art world. They
Mm,
don't really say this publicly, but there's only, the film industry is in contractions. It's a nightmare. Not much is done practically. We're all aware of this. So, if you don't have like monsters to make and you're a monster building studio, you reach out to artists, or artists reach out to you. They're like, I have an idea for a giant Scooby Doo statue. Can you make that?
mm,
And these effects artists are like, fucking A. So
mm,
Gabe, he works in films and music videos and stuff still, but percolating all the way in the background all the time is the high art world. And they make these giant molds and translucent art pieces and weird shit, and they ship them all over the world to these galleries.
mm. Man, oh man. And I love stop motion, any sort of like that animation, especially. And some of that goes along with, the earlier, like uses of such. But even in music videos and film and TV, do you have personal like favorites as far as that
Oh
come to mind
man,
with stop
I
motion?
mean, I remember being perturbed deeply by the Tool stop motion music videos in the
Oh,
90s,
dude.
you know, being scared but loving it, that sort of thing. And then, I initially got into stop motion by watching all the Ray Harryhausen films back in the
Yeah.
day. And of course, Wallace and Gromit
Mm-hmm.
was huge, even though it wasn't horror, but it had, film noir and horror elements and
Mm-hmm.
spoofs and stuff. Yeah, I mean, stop motion, I initially wanted to be a stop motion animator more than a live action anything. And
Mm,
when I first moved to LA, or graduated college out there, I tried my damnedest to become a stop motion animator. Spent a couple of years trying to pursue that, and it was just there wasn't a lot of work because this was 2008, 2009. The economy collapsed, and I just kept finding that I thought stop motion people would be my people, but they weren't. I didn't jive with them as much as I thought, and there was just it was like oil and water, and I
mm,
realized I loved storytelling and weirdness, which led more to stop motion, but it wasn't intrinsic. And now I do work in stop motion. I've met the people I like working with, but we have other things percolating. I got some stop motion things happening, which are very exciting. But where was
yeah.
I going with this? But I love the physicality of stop motion. I like that they're real. It tickles my brain.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And even recently, like a Fantastic Mr. Fox, like that movie came out,
Yeah.
and I'm just like the Isle of
Oh god.
Dogs.
Well,
It's like,
speaking of
man,
Isle of Dogs and Fantastic Mr. Fox, the stop motion project, this my filmic group we're developing right now, it's with that company.
no shit.
Yeah, we're working with them
Wow,
over right now.
wow.
Nothing's set in stone. It's all baby steps pre-production.
Hmm.
So I'm not saying this, anything can happen. And by that I mean it could not happen. But if it does, this would be incredible.
Oh man, that would be awesome. God, I love those movies. I mean, as far as when you're modeling, these characters for Pepto Abysmal, and you're kind of going over, like were there earlier concepts of how these would look, and kind of different visuals, and
Mhm.
what went into the final product that
Oh yeah, I
ended
mean,
up on screen?
everything gets sketched out first. I did some rough sketches based on Bjorn's ideas, which were then translated by Gabe into the puppets, and they were adjusted because we had to make sure like the armatures could fit inside, or it had to be the right, I built out the armature for not for the Abysmal puppet was just this thick, chunky thing,
Mm.
right? But the Panther, the Pink Panther style thing, that was it was like 1/16 aluminum armature wire, and I did like the initial build of that, and then Gabe added to it and made it a little bit more sturdy. A lot of resin and epoxy for the bone joints in it. It's a lot of work, but yeah, everything
Mm.
starts as a sketch, which is then refined and reworked to best fit a physical object.
What sequence may have been the most difficult to pull off with something like that? I'm always,
Yeah.
I get very fixated on these things, as far as the technicality that goes into such. And every once in a while, you have a scene that maybe it seems like it's simple. It's like, Jesus, the story to get behind how we pulled that off is
I remember one of
nuts.
the harder shots was when the Pink Panther shows up and walks down the hall, and I have a shot where the camera is looking through the closet past hanging clothes,
Mm.
and so
Yep.
the camera was, the puppet's like arm's length away on this high table, and so I have for every motion I have to go all the way under the table and then up through a hole in the floor to reposition it while trying not to knock the clothing hanging there, and then bring my arm out. And this was all shot in an upstairs room in a warehouse in Sun Valley, which is the deep valley past Burbank, past North Hollywood. And it was summer and hot, and the AC didn't work that well, so just kind of a sweaty nightmare. But yeah, also yeah,
Yeah.
that shot in particular was tough. All of that was kind of finicky and tough just because it was hot, and yeah, the set you could see it's this huge, so it was a lot of just reaching past a lot of objects and trying to be very careful.
Okay. Okay. How long does something like that take as far as a start to finish shot? Or not shot, I'm sorry, the
As a
shooting.
whole, I think it was maybe like a month or so of building the sets and building the puppets, and then maybe like a month and a half of animating.
Mm.
It's a while, yeah. I mean, the
Wow.
last stop motion short I helped pull together and produce, the one called Everybody Goes to the Hospital.
Mhm.
That was about 9 minutes long, and that took about a year of work.
Wow.
So,
Man. That's the part where it's a dedication, and like you mentioned, the passion earlier, like
mm.
I can imagine there being some days where you're like, why the fuck are we doing this like this?
It can be very intense, yeah. Well, that's why you gotta hopefully find the right people you click with,
Yeah.
and with that, we did. We all enjoyed working on that so much. That's how our little film collective, it's called Nihil Declarandum, kind of grew out of that, and we're developing further projects. I'm actually gonna be back in LA at the end of next week for a live variety show they're putting on that I worked on, where it's gonna be at the Philosophical Research Society. It will be fun.
Man, oh man. Excellent. I love all the different projects and all the different things that you have coming up too. It's like I say, you've got a talent, and you've got a lot of fun under your belt, man. There's probably some frustration in there, but
Yes,
pans out.
thank you. Here's hoping. Yeah, so far so good, give or
Sure.
take.
Okay. Okay. Next up, I wanted to touch on a little fun short that you had. The King of Stairs, friend of the show, Galen
Yes,
Howard. How do you
yeah.
guys come to meet?
I met Galen through fellow film weirdos, my good friend Doug Bergdorf, who I think is one of the greatest unsung weirdo filmmakers of our generation. He was at Emerson as well, but I think I was a year below him. We didn't meet till later in LA. His work is so good that even though he got many Vimeo staff picks over the years, when Vimeo got taken over by the new bullshit artists who run it, and have turned into a corporate desolate wasteland of bullshit. They deleted all his films with barely half a day's warning because there was some artistic nudity in it, and the rules had been changed.
Oh,
Anyway,
man.
I don't need to go off on a tangent about how much Vimeo sucks because we all agree on that, and everyone watching this agrees. We should burn it down. But um, he had worked with Galen on one or two of his weirdo short films, and he was like, "Oh, you should meet up with Galen. a fellow film obsessive character actor weirdo, and we met up and hit it off. We'd like get coffee every month or so and catch up. And then King of the Stairs just came out of wanting to improv some weird shit with him. So
Mm-hmm.
I had that old Sergeant Pepper's jacket. It's the same one that shows up in When We Dance, and
Oh, okay.
that was just filmed in my old Los Angeles apartment, and we just riffed it. I was just like, "You're crazy. You think you rule this land. The stairwell is your kingdom. Let's just go for this. Let's just see what happens." And then, of course, I ended up using a lot of the Mort Garson
Uh,
Plantasia music in it because I had just started listening to that synth music there and was obsessed with it. And that was just a weird thing done just for the hell of it. But
the
yeah,
score was
thank
perfect.
you.
I mean, I think of Galen and I see the dances that he does and the birthday, wishes that he sends out and the music in
True
that especially. I
commitment
was
to
like,
the bit, I'll tell you what. But
wow,
yeah,
man, oh man, it's incredible.
yeah.
Was that just like a day shoot thing then?
Oh yeah,
Just getting together?
we got coffee around the corner at the Oaks Gourmet, which was like my go-to coffee spot in LA, and then we just went back and just filmed it. It was probably a couple hours, if that. Just making weird shit. I was worried that my neighbors. Well, I'm always worried about them, or was, but I thought we'd piss them off because we're making weird noises, but nobody came out and bothered
Uh,
us. So
Beautiful. Thank goodness. I mean, and what a better way to segue as far as into Destroy All Neighbors, and the some of the fun and testing and trials that you've had with neighbors over the
yeah,
years, and mentioned in the early stages, pitching a DAN that the draw was for an '80s aesthetic, wasn't much of a demand. What can you tell us about
right.
this being a perfect, you know a movie theater video rental experience, and the relationship of this finally coming together?
So it was a long time coming. It took over a decade from start of writing an idea to it actually becoming the movie that Shudder put out, and it grew out of the fact that at the time I had a genuinely insane new neighbor move in next door to me in Los Angeles. He was a mid-level drug lord. He was an alcoholic. He was a coke fiend. He installed a stripper's pole in his living room because of how many women he was bringing back late at night. And it was this sort of old building where my apartment was a mirror image of his, so we shared walls across the whole length of it. His bedroom was right across from my bedroom, his living room right across from mine. This guy was perfectly round. He looked like Baron Harkonnen from any of the Dune versions you most prefer, right? And he was terrifying, and he'd keep me up late at night howling and screaming and blaring EDM and weird music, and all the other neighbors were afraid of him. I think he was generally paying off the property manager and landlord to stay quiet. And this just was going on. I was losing my mind. My then girlfriend lived with me, and that relationship was strained and strained even more by the lack of sleep and the craziness. And so I started complaining about this to a friend of mine, the music video director, Josh Forbes. Turns out he also had a loud, crazy neighbor next to him, a schizophrenic who would bang on the wall and say that he was going to kill his wife before
Mm-hmm.
the baby was born, like real fucked up shit. So he kind of looked at me and he was like, Charlie, this is a relatable story to almost anybody living in an apartment building. What if we pool our craziness together? You could be the screenwriter because you've done more screenwriting, but I could be quote unquote the director because I'm more known as a music video director. And maybe if we work on it together, it'll be easier to get made. He was right. It still took 10 years, but he was
Mm-hmm.
right. If I had just tried to get it done myself, I did not have enough cultural cachet and vice versa. But the problem was is a horror comedy, very bleak and gnarly, but strange. And when we started to send the earlier drafts around the city, we'd get the note that, oh, this is too funny to be scary or too gross to be funny. But mostly we got, this feels like an 80s film. No one likes the 80s. They don't do 80s vibing projects anymore. The 80s are dead. Because this was so
Mm-hmm.
long ago, it was before Stranger Things was
Sure,
released.
sure.
So the film sort of died to death, and we just moved on to other things. But we had gotten Jonah Ray attached just through friends of friends and email connections. The concept being, if we ever got enough money it was like a handshake agreement. Oh, if you get enough money to make this, I'll be involved. You can have my name attached to it. And it was not enough to get it made. I went on to do Malacostraca. Josh did many more music videos. And then the pandemic hit and quarantine hit. And it was during the quarantine that Bill and Ted 3 came out, and Jonah watched it and saw Alex Winter in the full body prosthetics as like the prisoner version of his character, and was like, oh, he still loves weird prosthetics? Like, oh wow, what if he played Vlad? What if we revise the script towards that? And then lo and behold, it turns out they were actual neighbors in the same neighborhood. And they kept bumping each other on the street, because this was during quarantine where the only social activity anyone could do was go outside with a mask on and walk around. Yeah. So they became friendly, and he pitched the script to him. And at first, Alex Winter was not sure, because it's a lot of work. Prosthetics are a lot. And he was like, let me think about it. And then by the end of that week, he emailed back. He's like, we got to do it. Let's do it. I want to be Vlad. And his cred within the cult horror world was enough that Shudder was like, oh, you have Alex Winter involved? We'll buy the script from you outright. Let's make this. Oh, and then it was still about a year and a half before shooting began, because they bought it like a couple days before the Omicron variant hit, and then everything got pushed back. And so it was an endless process, but that's the story.
Okay. I mean, in hearing different things, and also being able to speak with Josh too, as far as the kind of process with this. I know initially, our lead is, a comic writer, but with the time, that we have from the initial concept to when, you guys are in the actual like creation process and starting to film and such, what were some of the other, changes? Was Vlad, something of a different character, or the look?
It all changed. When I initially wrote it, I was dealing with the nights of no sleep and the craziness and the fear that I would never get this guy evicted. So the earlier drafts leaned more into the horror and were less comedic. They were bleaker. It was more about the slow decay and madness, and had a way darker ending. And I mean, I needed to do that for my own sake. But over time, it ended up with 2 other punch-up writers who were brought on to rework aspects to Jonah and then to Alex, and I was okay with that. Perhaps some slight skepticism at first, but this was already a collaborative project since I wasn't going to be the director. Josh Forbes was. The first punch-up writer was brought in, is a guy named Mike Benner. He'd written for Bob's Burgers. So I'm like, I am not going to be upset that a comedy writer from Bob's Burgers is making this funnier. So it really, it ended up making the humor lighter and a little brighter, but still dark and deadly. It became sweeter. And again, similarly to how Malacostraca evolved over years of trying to make it, Josh Forbes felt the same way. When you're trying to make a feature film for 10 years in LA and everyone else seems to be doing it quicker than you, it riles you up. So the film evolved into being more about the act of creation and trying to be a creative but feeling thwarted and blaming other people when you're the problem. I mean, the William main character was always reflective of that from the earlier drafts, but it just became more, it got baked in further into the script and became the end result, which is even more about the creative process than it was initially.
Okay. And then it's funny too, because I feel like the change into a prog rock, just aggressive, so to speak. It felt such like when I initially kind of heard the whole like comic thing, it felt like that equally abusive relationship where it's like not necessarily something that people constantly, are helming, someone over or, or happy off. And it's like a personal, like love and interest and passion, to where I was like, how did prog rock come into this?
Prog rock came from Mike Benner. Also, what Sergio said earlier, the lack of vision in investors, that's a complete nightmare of Hollywood always, and it's even worse now. That's an endless. You're totally spot on there, Sergio. But so in the early drafts, William was trying to be a cartoonist, a comic book artist, like something that would come out on Fantagraphics, and he couldn't focus on drawing from how loud the music was next door. He kept, flinching the scratches and the lines. And we realized Well, Mike realized, like, well, what if he's trying to make music? So it's all about music. It's all about sound. And what's the funniest sort of music? Well, prog rock, because it's so zany and you can do anything with it. So yeah, Mike brought the prog rock, and in retrospect, it was such a brilliant, obvious, because like I like weirdo rock music. I collect vinyl. I'm sort of that guy to a much lesser extent. So it was one of those things where it was a change that unlocked the script, and it's what it should have been from day one. And it just flew out from there, and everyone just riffed off that idea. Yeah.
I mean, tell us about, the look and initially seeing Alex as Vlad. What kind of extremity came from, the years of prep and work that went into this to seeing him and being like, Jesus, they really outdid themselves.
It was so I'd always wanted Gabe Bartolos to work on it because I'd worked with him. It was a big influence on me, and I wanted to keep it in the filmic family, so to say. And luckily, it worked out that they met with him and liked him, and he really. I mean, it's straight from the script. The very first draft I wrote, 12, 13 years ago now, described Vlad as having hideous sausage fingers, and that's what he ended up having. He had the fake hands and the arms and the bodysuit and the head. It was several hours of application every early morning for Alex to get into that. And yeah, I got to go to set a couple times, and having him come up to me and talk to me normally in between takes while looking like that, like this character that was based off a true nightmare in my mind and then evolved into this. It was like seeing a Mad Magazine cartoon come to life. It was really wild, really wild.
Was that suit, was that like a head to torso or was that head to
It
toe?
was a full head over prosthetic with a neck piece that went down to about here, and then under the shirt a chest piece, and then full like half arms into the hands. Yeah.
God, jeez, and the application, I can imagine. Man, oh man, and what a trooper, I mean, as far as for over the years and the amount of stuff that Alex has done, and then to be like, hey, this is something we're gonna do.
He really, I mean, his production company is called like Trooper for real, and because he
Yeah.
is, and I was so worried he was going to get heat exhaustion because the first 2 weeks of our shoot were during the summer in LA, and a heat wave hit, and it was over 100 degrees every single day for 2 weeks, and we're shooting in this warehouse downtown with not good AC. They built like AC cooling tents for the actors to rush into in between takes, but yeah, I was always worried that we were going to kill him.
Just last a couple more days, man. We only have a couple more days to shoot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, what maybe just on a final here, what visual aspect, other than Alex, were there certain shots or certain things when you see the final product that you're just like, damn, dude, from page to final product, you're like, this is
Well, the
cool.
opening credits, I love the stop motion animated opening tunnel credits. That goes back to the very first draft I wrote myself, where I was like, we start with the crazy claymation Jan Spankmeyer intro sequence, flying
Mm-hmm.
through heat, flying through, and the making of that was really intense, and it went on forever. That was animated by Rich Zim, who's arguably one of the greatest claymation artists in the world. He animated on The Nightmare Before Christmas and The Gumby Show in the 90s. Anytime you've seen some weird cartoony claymation in anything, it's probably him. And he built all these little tube tunnels and was shot frame by frame with a camera with like a 12-inch long miniature lens so it could go in and fisheye it. And seeing that on the big screen, it really hits. And I hope that there gets to be more special screenings of it, because it had a limited theatrical release, but only through Alamo Drafthouse. So like if your city had one, great, but if not, you just got to see it on TV or on Shudder. But yeah, that opening credit sequence tickles me every time I see it. And then of course the Skeletor puppet. I've always wanted to have a full animatronic corpse puppet, and Gabe and his team really knocked that out of the park. I love that.
Oh man, what fun, dude! What fun. We don't have an Alamo. There's one in Chicago, and
Yeah.
when I get over there, I always try to enjoy a movie if I can, and they're always doing really cool stuff too. So if I ever see that, I would love to see it on the big screen. Because God, man, what a fun fucking movie! What it's just absolutely exciting. Next, I wanted to touch on When We Dance in 2022,
Yeah.
and this being this is I was going to say a little more, but this is a deep, concept. This is, kind of a troubling, unsettling at moments, heartfelt story. And what can you tell us about, this film here?
Yeah, so in some ways it's the odd man out in my filmography because it's not exactly horror. It's sort of romance. It's sort of melodrama. I took it to prove that I could direct more than just gnarly puppets eating
Mm.
each other, right? Pretty much. Uh, so
Okay.
this came to be when I was at Film Quest for, I want to say, yeah, I think it was for the world premiere of Malacostraca. I met a writer there named Kenny Wright, another writer with a great last name for writing, and we hit it off. And a couple months later, he approached me with a couple of short scripts. He's like, I want to make a short film. I'm a writer. I'm not a director. I like your style. Check these out. If any of these appeal to you, maybe we could collaborate.
Mm.
And two of the three scripts were more classical horror, monster, slasher film. And I was like, okay, I've done that. And then there was When We Dance, which is about this older man whose wife just passed away, and he thinks he sees her ghost and tries to bring her back by re-listening to the song that was on the record player when they first met as teenagers at a dance party in the 60s. And I thought, oh, this is different. This is fun. This could be a real fun creative challenge to do actors in their older life and then find younger actors to replicate them as teenagers, let alone somehow doing a period piece. And so, kind of to Kenny's surprise, that was the script I chose to do. And so we built it out. We did another little fundraiser, got a small but decent budget, but small enough that really the only reason the film got made is we got that house location for free through family friends,
Oh, okay.
and it was all
Wow.
shot in one house.
Hmm.
The 60s party sequence was just in the parking garage, or with the cars taken out of the garage.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
and yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. I really liked collaborating with that group. Larry Cedar, who's the main actor, he's a well-known character actor. He was on Deadwood and HBO back in the day. He's done some
Hmm.
horror stuff. In the Twilight Zone movie, he's the gremlin on the wing.
Oh, yeah,
Guy
that's right.
that
That's right. I forgot
monster
about that.
suit,
Okay.
which is awesome. Uh, but yeah, the film, we made the short, and then by the time it was out to the festival circuit, this was during the quarantine period, so almost no one saw it in reality. And also, it wasn't horror, really.
Mm.
So all the horror festivals that knew me from Malacostraca, it got into a couple small fests. It pretty much just, at the time, it felt like a fart in the wind, which was a bummer because I felt like we did something really sweet. And yeah, but what I've noticed in the years since is, again, almost no one has seen it, but the people who do see it, a couple of people really click, and it really seems to hit people hard,
Mm.
which is good because it's supposed to. It's a heavy melodrama, and I'm proud of it. But yeah, that's the story. Is that it was another creative collaboration, and I took it because I thought it'd be fun to direct a script that someone else wrote. We all ended up rewriting it and working on it together, but yeah,
Mm.
I'm proud of it, and I want to work with Larry again. One of the scripts I'm developing now, there's a part in it for him if it gets off the ground.
Sick. It's awesome. Yeah, and it's something too with melodrama or drama, in the sense where every once in a while there are certain moments, or even just to think of the aspect of heartache in real life, or losing someone. I mean, the horrors that kind of come along that where your mind goes and your body's kind of giving up and you're trying to do what you can to get through like day-to-day process and shit.
Yeah.
Horror, I don't think always has to necessarily, delve into blood
Right.
and guts and a killer or anything like that, as part as, like you said, looking out the window and some of the things that are right around us and just the natural days of like trying to figure out how you're going to process and make it through. And
Mm.
like I say, this was a deep, cut, so to speak, just, personally to myself, and,
Mm.
going through and some of the heartfelt aspects. Um, the music, where, how do you decide on that record, and
So
tell
that
us
was
about the band there.
my initial idea. Was I love the idea that he'd fall in love with her at the party, set to a soundtrack of really not romance music.
Yeah,
I wanted to
right.
use the song "Oscillations" by Silver Apples, which is a infamous experimental late 60s underground. They did a lot of atonal sampling, like they were way ahead of their time.
Mm.
And Kenny, the writer, was like, no, like that's not the vibe. And we went back and forth on that for a long while. And then, of course, I found out that to license that song would be thousands and thousands of dollars because they're now owned by like Warner Brothers Music. So that was out the window. And then, luckily, I known I reached out to the composers who'd worked on Malacostraca with me, and one of them just happened to have this weird synthy sounding, quirky but lovely song, which I was like, this is perfect. Can we use it? And he was like, of course. So the song in When We Dance, that is by one of the people from Malacostraca, but the rest of the music is by different composers. This guy named Mackenzie Stubber. And I met him because he did the music for Everybody Goes to the Hospital. This was our first time working together. He's part of the Nihil Declarandum crew. His wife is the writer-director, Tiffany Kimmel, who is a huge part of everything. And they're just awesome. And so we hit it off. And so he had some music he had done before and then some stuff he reworked to fit it. So that was sort of our first collaboration. And that led to everything else.
Man, yeah, I love this, man. I really, I had a, it was deep. It definitely cut and definitely pulled the strings, and especially there's the funny aspect to me is for how long, being a little kid and loving movies and, like all of these feature things, but having something that is a short and having something that's, just kind of right, the meat and potatoes and, drops out. It's been interesting over, the past 10 years of finding some of the short films that are out there and the talent that is, within. And sometimes those are pitches to use, for a feature or, showing somebody. But this was definitely one of those ones where I was like, oh, God, that hurt. I don't know if I could take a full.
Yeah, I don't know if I return to that as a feature. There is a feature-length screenplay version of Malacostraca. I didn't make that as a proof of concept either, but
really?
Later I was asked to expand it, and I thought, no, and then I figured out a weird way into it. So I currently, I like this feature script of Malacostraca way more than the short, but who knows if that'll ever get made. It's gnarly. It's hard to get stuff made. My manager is actively trying to get that out again right now to some people, but I don't hold my breath about anything.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, and touching on that, we kind of mentioned, Jan Svankmajer and Lil Odik and, some of the aspects, but what were, kind of other inspirations as far as visually, the cinematography to this, the way it's shot, visually? I mean, it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. I wanted it to look as beautiful as A Picnic at Hanging Rock, but be as disturbing as Possession. Those are sort of the two polar opposites of the spectrum for the film. And cinematographer on this, we're old friends. We go way back. Her name is Ava Shore, and she is probably, in my opinion, definitely one of the best cinematographers out there right now. She just was incredible. I'm not a technical. I write, I could tell her like, oh, I want this to look like it's underwater in the 1970s. And then she can be like, okay, it's this lens, this diffusion, and this gel. And yeah, she's a great collaborator. I want to work with her again. I have 3 DPs who I really love and hopefully get to work with all of them on different films moving forward. But yeah, Ava is she's done several feature films and documentaries since then. She's on a shoot right now, maybe in Michigan or somewhere. Yeah, she's all over the place.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm in Michigan. I gotta check that out and see what they got going on. Boy, oh boy. I always appreciate, something heading over this way, the old Midwest.
It's a good time. Lake Michigan monster, hundreds of beavers. That's my
Oh, dude, hundreds of beavers.
Yeah.
That movie is insane, and that is going wild. I don't know, like they've still got also. Yeah. Well, we'll touch another time anyway. What as far as for is it Malacostraca?
Malacostraca. Yeah. So
okay. I was
never
pronouncing it wrong.
A Latin scientific word as a title ever again. It made sense for this. Malacostraca is the Latin word for the largest genus of soft-shelled crustacean in the world.
Okay. Yeah.
And when I researched that back in college when I was writing the short, and I was like, oh, that's so perfect. If people know what that is, it makes sense. But even if they don't, it sounds creepy and weird. It sounds like some island that you'd shipwreck on and be stuck, and the characters are stuck in this bad marriage. So that's where it
Uh-huh.
comes. Yeah.
Oh, love
The
that.
feature
Love that.
goes into showing the author come across that word in the dictionary and writing it, so it finally gets to explain it more.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, damn, dude. What? Well, I mean, bring us back to day one of shooting on this. You know, what was kind of the shoot layout for this?
We shot it over 2 separate weekends. The first weekend was the opening scene out by the creek. It was hot as hell. There wasn't much shade. And then the second weekend was all in the house, and long hours. It was intense. It was nerve wracking. It was like almost half a decade leading up to that point. No sleep really the night before. Nerve wracking. What's interesting is the land that creek ran through. It was on the land of an abandoned Buddhist monastery that was about to be torn down. So if we rotated the camera away from the creek, there'd be all these Buddhist god statues everywhere, which were
Whoa.
awesome. Of course, it didn't fit at all what we needed for the film, but it gave for a very weird, dreamlike quality to just shooting there. And it was foothills of the mountains leading up to the Angeles Forest and the Angeles Crest. So it was quiet and beautiful and intense, and yeah. But we had a good small cast and crew, other than the 2 producers I had to fire. I really had other producers on set there acting as first ADs, but they had an emergency meeting earlier where we told them, like, look, you're actually producers. After the end of this day, you will be producers. We just need, like, it was like an Indiana Jones switch, right? Fire the other 2 in place so nothing exploded.
Okay.
That was a big, yeah, like, it's great to work with your friends, but you really got to know they know what's what first. There was a learning curve there, but yeah. But it was intense, but very fun. I feel most alive on set, just the creative energy and the excitement and the collaboration. And yeah, it was good. I remember when we started shooting in the house, there was a bigger grip and electric crew on that, just because we had more setups and stuff. And some of them didn't realize I was the director at first, because they weren't used to a director being so excited and bubbly and running around. Like, they just thought I was like a madman, especially when a film script like that is so heavy and so bleak. It's serious and the actors have to be in it, but I try to keep a light mood nonetheless. I want to balance out the darkness, right? But I remember some of the electric. It was weird. It took a moment for some of us to click together, but the end result came together fantastic. And yeah, I think it's about as good as that short film could be under the duress it all was done under.
Oh, man. I mean, and getting to work with Gabe again, can you tell us about, the development and, just the working and reworking of how the child, comes to look
Yeah.
and work and operate?
The Emily puppet, I mean, that was about a year of pre-production alone, just on, sketching and clay forms and going back and forth. And then the end result being that puppet that was often puppeteered on set by 3 or 4 puppeteers, sometimes hidden, sometimes digitally erased from wide shots. There's a lot of digital cleanup work to hide people and wires. And there are even a couple shots where I had them take out like modern day fire alarms on the walls of the house and stuff, because I didn't want anything that made it feel real, right? There was even one shot where we had to kind of erase a crew member from a mirror that was she like dipped in just enough in frame for a moment. I'm like, all these little things that only I would notice, but I had to. But no, the puppet was intense and tricky and finicky, but we leaned into it. I mean, the fact that it's all sort of hallucinatory gives some wiggle room into it being a bit lumpy and bumpy. Were the feature to get made, the design would be altered slightly, and we initially wanted full mechanical animatronics, but the budget just did not support it. So it ended up becoming a hand puppet with some rod work and like the breathing. Literally, there was a tube and someone just breathed into its back to make the chest rise and fall. So it was very old-fashioned, but it looked great. The only digital aspect of the puppet is we digitally added translucent lizard lids that blink every now and then. That wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted it to be practical, but that would have been way more expensive. But I made sure that the lizard lids look like they were coming from within the eye. Because one of my main pet peeves with horror films is when there's a practical puppet and it blinks digitally normally, but the brow doesn't move, right? Like that just pulls me out of it. Like if that thing blinks, the whole. So with this, I was like, it's reptilian, it's crustacean, it's blinking from within its eyes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I really thought
Where,
about it. I had a lot of time to think about it.
well, where does Emily? You know, you have this adorable child, so to speak, if we will, and naming it Emily. I thought that it kind of felt like it was, when you have a family friend or somebody's, a dog that is like
Sure.
this human's name, and
Yeah.
you're like, okay.
I don't know. I've always just had a soft spot for that name. It just feels old fashioned and sweet. And I like the idea that something so hideous would have just such a calm, soothing name. Emily.
Yeah, yeah, okay, okay, and fits, and it works. Now, as far as viewers, were any crawdads harmed? Was there any sort of practical
So we
effect with
learned the
this?
hard way that when you're ordering live crawdads through the internet, the least amount you can order is £5 because
What?
it's people buying them for cookouts, family cookouts, like a crawdad grill. You can't just get one or two crawdads. They don't sell them like that. It wouldn't be financially feasible.
Uh,
So we got £5 in the mail in like a containing, with some water, and they were all fighting each other. It was awful. And we we didn't hurt any of them, but they were hurting each other. We had to pull some guys apart, and in the end, we released them all into that river. We got the okay from the person who owns the land.
oh, okay.
So maybe there's an invasive family of crawdads there now, all these years later. I was a little worried about that, but we never heard anything. So I think they all just swam off and lived their lives as best as we could. But yeah, it was wild. It didn't seem right that they just be £5 and all bagged up together. It was awkward.
That's crazy. No shit. Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense when you mention the whole like grill out thing,
Yeah.
and but yeah, yeah. Sometimes you're just like, I didn't want to order 500
No.
cassettes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I just wanted to make
Really.
a limited release, and now I have to figure this out. I mean, was there ever like a thought of like a rewrite into incorporating more, or were you just like, we'll
Well,
just release it?
because we had all them, that's why we opened the film with all the underwater footage of them all kind of swimming and fighting each other. It's
Oh,
like, we have,
oh yeah,
let's
yeah.
put some
Okay, okay,
shots in.
okay.
Initially, it was just going to be like a montage of the husband and wife swimming underwater and their bodies kind of coming together and in and out. And we realized it would be hard to rent a pool, and then we'd have to make it all murky to look like it was just too much work. But then we're like, well, we have all these crawdads, and we have the actual river stream water, and we have an aquarium, so we just dumped them into the aquarium and put some of the water and just filmed them with the macro lens.
Hmm. Interesting. Man, oh man. Well, that's awesome. And I love this. I mean, as far as if a feature comes, I would be happy to check that out and, to shout about it. But I mean, as far as the short, and the film that we have, it was so fun. I love the stuff that you're doing, man. And and continuing too, apparently. I mean, you gotta always keep up the
I
fight.
have, yeah, so many scripts I'm actually working. I'm in the midst of more scripts right now than I've ever been involved in at one point. And again, not
Hmm.
to say they'll all get made, who knows, but it's exciting to have so many plates spinning that I feel excited by. So,
Now, when you're writing, are you a pencil and paper? Do you
I'm a laptop. I'm a final draft guy. I
hmm.
have my sketchbook with me, and I sometimes do sketches and drawings, or I'll write out a quick little thing. But no, I'm a coffee shop kid. I go to the coffee shop. I have my social time and then my writing time, and yeah, I've been in final
Beautiful.
draft forever. It feels like.
Jeez. Well, Charlie, this has been absolutely amazing. I always love the behind the scenes insight. I love the stuff that you're doing. We could have gone into other films as well because you have a lot of fun stuff. You have a great Vimeo page for anybody that's not aware, and some great, wild, wacky, and heartfelt work within there. So yeah, man, I cannot appreciate the time today, and thank you very much once again.
Thanks for having me. It was a fun discussion.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and some stuff in the works, possibly here in the future, or near future, and we'll have to be on the lookout for that too. So
Absolutely.
anybody that tuning in a little bit late, this will be up on YouTube.
Yep.
I'll have it promoted and everything in the next couple of months. And once again,
Perfect.
Charlie,
All
thank
right.
you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right,
See you later.
take care.
X out right now. Bye bye.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi, lo-fi a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.